Hello, hello, and welcome to the Lotus Lounge. We are so excited to be here with you tonight. So, this is our very first episode, and we are excited to have this conversation because it's definitely much needed. I am Dr. J, Dr. Jasmine Agnew, and I am so excited to be here with two of my other Lady Doc friends, Dr. Ebony Dodson, Dr. Dana Badger. For this first episode, we will just give you guys just a brief introduction to us and all of our fabulousness, and then we're going to get into talking about our topic for tonight. So, we're going to start with Dr. Dodson, Dr. Badger, and then you can come back to me. So, Dr. Dodson.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Ebony Dotson. Dr. D or Dr. Ebony is what I prefer. But professionally, I work within the HBCU setting as the Assistant Director of HBCU Engagement, also adjunct faculty at the Morehouse School of Medicine. In my spare time, I love to just hang out and just be. I love sports, I love reading, I love flowers. I love wine. And so any of those things will get me going and bring a smile to my face. But I'm delighted to share the stage with my Lady Doc friends. And we're going to just be real and be honest tonight and have a tough conversation. So, Dr. Badger?
Absolutely. I am Dr. LaDana Badger. I am a director of nursing for a nursing school, a pre-licensure nursing program. I've been a nurse for about 20 years, and I've been in nursing administration and leadership for the past 11. And so my passion is focused around nursing, specifically minorities in nursing, no matter how you chop it up, whether it be African American, Latin American, men in nursing. That's typically where my passion and my research typically lies. And so I'm excited to actually have this real conversation because I'm sure my friends can tell you when it comes to that leadership and the roles we sit in and the chairs that we sit in, it's a very viable topic, especially as you progress through the year. So thank you. Dr.
Absolutely. And I am Dr. Jasmine Agnew, Senior Vice President of one of the largest member organizations for health information management. Also, the owner of Agnew Davis Sedell, where we specialize in career and academic placement, helping people determine what it is they want to do with their future, whether it is going back to school, getting more certifications, getting on hands-on training to just do better, be better, see more, and be more. I focus on helping to diversify a field where you don't see many people that look like us, which is health informatics and information management. And so my passion is just helping us to see and helping us to do more to excel. So with that being said, since all of us sit at the table as leaders, it's really important for us to talk about how sometimes, there's this trope of being the strong Black woman. Okay. All of us are definitely that. But what happens when you got to bring it down a notch? You got to read the room, but you still need to maintain your authenticity. Sometimes, there's a struggle because what we say, we sound a little more passionate and it's not always accepted. Sometimes it's seen as us like being a little too loud, a little too ghetto, a little too strong. And it's so funny when people call me ghetto because y'all just don't understand how country I am. Okay. Like I'm from the middle of nowhere in Mississippi. Ebony from Mississippi, Dana from Texas. I'm pretty sure.
I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the Southern twang.
Yeah.
I do. Because that's the thing.
That's a thing. And like I have to really like make sure that I'm being very clear and very articulate when I'm speaking in certain audiences. But I'm still jazz. Like I'm still country. Like I got the whole state of Mississippi tattooed on my arm. I am still very much a Mississippi queen, like all day. But
so Jazz, I really want to ask you about that because the twang, the countryness as you call it, or in some settings, what would be labeled as ghetto, like how does it make you feel as a professional? Because I think we have been taught to walk into spaces and just have to be articulate, right? We have to sound a certain way, look a certain way in order to be at the tables where we've ascended. So how does that make you feel, like just as a person?
It makes me feel like I have to really walk that line of I want you to understand what I'm saying. I want my message to be clear. And I don't want you to be so caught up on the delivery that you miss the entire, the depth and the breadth of what I'm trying to say. Yes, I am very much Southern by roots and by nature, but I'm also very educated, well trained, and highly skilled in the field. So when I'm talking to you about topics that are relevant, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence, is what I'm on right now. I hope that you understand what I'm saying and you pay more attention to the content and not the delivery of what I'm saying. But I do understand that sometimes, we do have to put on our best face. But I just want to make sure that when we do that, we can still be our authentic selves. Like I don't want to be portrayed as somebody that I'm not. You know, I'm probably as down home and down to earth as you get it. But do you understand and can you be taken seriously? That's the thing that I always want to know. Are we taking serious in those settings when they're so enamored with, oh my gosh, you speak so well, and it's always that part, that silent part for a Black woman that I feel like I hear at the end of the conversation sometimes. So how do we maintain our authenticity and being who we really are? Because being highly educated, highly skilled is also who we are. So how do we do that?
Heavy sigh.
Heavy sigh.
Right. Because again, like this is a mantle that I don't think any of us ask for, right? We don't walk into any place saying I want to be the strong Black woman or the only Black woman or any of those things, right? But that's kind of the badge of honor that we're left with when we enter these rooms. And it's hard because you end up trying to walk this tightrope of being two people, really, almost in some cases, because there's this professional me that has to show up, right, and be palatable, because I think that's really what it is, or digestible, right, because people can only take us in small doses. But then there's the other part of us that's just who we are. Like you said, we're just down home, regular, down to earth, approachable people. But we have to, again, flip that switch to be in the rooms, in the spaces that we take up. So I don't know. Heavy sighs where I go back to.
Heavy sigh. All right, Dr. Badger. You being in a situation to where you are at a high level, you dealing with nursing, which is a very, there's still a lot of room for more diversity, but we are growing in those spaces.
Right.
How do you deal with those populations where you do have the Hispanic, you have the Asian, you have the African American, you have Caucasian? How do you relate to all of them? And then none of us look our age. They all think that we babies. Well, not as much as they used to. I think
Yes, they do.
But I'm just saying, how do you deal with those misconceptions when they see you and they're just like, who is this?
So I deal with it from two sides. So since I'm in academia, I have the leadership, the faculty, the people behind the scenes, right? Then I deal with it from the student side, because trust, know, and believe. If you got a Black student, a Latin student, a Native American, Indian, you're gonna deal with a cultural difference, right? And so, unfortunately, I have to have very honest conversations with them, like from a professional saying, you can't do that. So one of my favorite things to do with my students, especially my Black students, it's not often I get to do this, is to have a real and honest conversation. Like, for example, unfortunately, I had a student to cuss an instructor out. And I'm like, bro.
Look, man.
And that is, as a Black woman, that's nothing I ever want a Black student to do, because we're already mislabeled because I think the strong Black woman stereotype feeds into it coincides with the angry Black woman stereotype.
Exactly.
Like that's just what we do. That's just how we are, and that's not true. And it's a misconception. It's a stereotype. But I don't ever want my students to feed into that stereotype, and that's insane for myself. I'm not from the ghetto, so please don't label me as ghetto. I'm not from the hood.
I don't even go over there.
I will let you.
We don't even know where the ghetto is. Like that's not where we come from. But
it's a misunderstanding. Now, it's not even a misunderstanding. It's a stereotype that we all come from a single parent home. We're from the hood and we made it out and we speak good because we're the few educated. And that's not the truth. So I'm not going to show you that image because that's not the image I was raised with. My parents been married for 50 plus years, still married, still in the home, raised with both my mother and my father from DeSoto, Texas. I will correct you I am from Dallas because that is the most noticeable location if you're not from here, but I'm from the suburbs. Please don't get it twisted. But at the same token, I do think that us as a culture, we have a tendency to hang our hat, our Blackness on the struggle. I'm proud to say I'm not from the struggle. My parents did that. I'm proud of that, and I will wear that as a badge of honor. But with that, please don't put that stereotype on me as a Black woman just because you see me as a Black individual. So
Right.
when I walk into these spaces, yes, I do have to code switch and speak proper, fix my Southern twang. I am very much from Texas, and you hear that accent come out, but I do know how to correct it when I need to make sure my message is very clear, because I work for a national organization. So although I'm a regional director that mainly operates out of the South, yes, in the South I can use my Southern twang, right? Because I go to Oklahoma, we sound alike, we talk alike, we get each other.
I'm heading to Oklahoma next week.
But I also manage Massachusetts, New England. I don't sound anything like those people, right? So I do have to, so that they can understand what I'm saying. I do have to clear it up, and also I think when you have a Southern twang, it's misconstrued as uneducated. It is misconstrued as if you are uneducated. It's like, oh, she's just so Southern. That's just can't be. No, I got all these degrees. I'm very much educated. It is literally
all the
geographic.
look, all the frames are on the wall.
All the
Right. Right there. They take up the whole wall.
All the frames are on the wall. So I have a question, because you brought up a good point, LaDana, when you were talking about sort of the strong Black woman persona and how it ties into the angry Black woman sort of stereotype. And I'm wondering, because I had this happen to me recently, but how does it feel when it's not just them who do it to us, but us who do it to each other? How does that feel? Because when you're in these places and it's not just coming from the op, let's just say, but it's coming from your own women who look like you, women who come from similar backgrounds as you and have attained a certain level of education as well and professional stature, but they still maintain that same stereotype and they use it or weaponize it. How does, like, talk to me about that, because I've been a little stuck the last few days.
Listen, you go first, and I'm gonna go.
When I see that, I be so disappointed in the culture. Like, it's so disappointing. So because it's not coming from, and that's really what you think, it's typically coming from a space of competition. Like, only one of us can fit in this space. And that bothers me because that is not true at all. And where I see it a lot is going to conferences where I'll say it's 90% white, 10% Black. And you know, when you walk into a space where you're the minority, you just be happy to see another Black person, like, hey girl, hey, right? And it's always that one who's like, oh no, we can't be seen together. I'm not like them, you know. And that bothers me to my core. But I kind of, like, it's the biggest the feeling that you asked about is disappointment. But I also had to realize that's you and your moral dilemma, not mine. Because I don't think that same thing about that individual. I just assume she's qualified to be in that position. And I do want community and camaraderie when I see other Black women or other Black individuals in a certain space where we are a minority. So when I see someone push us out, one of our own, I have my own, like, misconceptions. I assume a lot at that point. I assume they're like a Candace Owen, or, you know, and I don't know that for a fact, but I just be like, you really don't like us, huh?
Yeah. You know, that's a conversation, I think, for a different day. But you're right. And I think disappointment, but just disheartened, right? By the notion that here we are side by side. We both already made it. We're here. We've arrived at the same destination at the same time.
Rightfully so.
And so, you know, it is disheartening and very disappointing, and in some instances discouraging, right? To be next to someone that now you feel like you gotta watch them, maybe even more closely, because they've let it be known they feel away. And you said something about the competition piece. Again, I think that's a larger conversation that we could dive down that rabbit hole and not come back today. But I'm really interested to hear what Jazz has to say, because we talk about this in the background all the time. So
Listen, I'm gonna just tell you, I was never called whitewashed until I worked at HBCU. I was never my qualifications were never questioned until I worked at HBCU. And so for me, I do love my people. I love my culture. There were just things about when we would all come together, and it would just be a collective of educated, qualified, highly skilled African American people that, we all came from these different places, but we're all here not only to serve and support to one another, but also to, to be there to help inspire others. And for you to be in a place where when you're trying to raise us above the just we want to become we don't want to set the bar, we are the bar. We want to be the best, we want to encourage others to be the best, and you think that I'm trying to turn it into something that's not. And I get that from the people that look like me. And so my whole thought is that what is the problem, and what is your problem with me as a person, that you can't say, hey, let us get together and do this together? Because that's the problem. It comes to that competition, because we don't recognize how much we can do if we would just all get along, put that competition to the side, and look how much of a movement we can be all together. And I think that we so worried about, no, it's got to be me first, that it can't be us together. And I really think that us as Black women, us as Black people, we have to do a better job at that. There's no reason for us to have so much distinction among one another, especially the highly educated. The Black women that make up, what, 4%? We are a very small portion. And instead of us finding strength and us being resilient and moving together, we find ways to cut each other down. And that is very disappointing to me. And, going back to what Lizana said about, well, Dr. Badger said about being in places where they make assumptions about us. Now, Lizana and I worked together at the same institution. And I can remember when anytime they had questions about about diversity, or, hey, do we need to change this? They would ask me about it. And there was one young lady that asked me a question about growing up in a single household in the country. I said, well, first of all, what make you think I came from a single parent household? She said, well, we only hear you talk about your mom. I said, my parents have been married for 2 years longer than I've been alive. So they've been together for quite some time. And not only that, like, I didn't grow up in the hood or in the projects or in the trailer park. We lived in one of the biggest houses in the neighborhood. I had a child at 18 because I was skipping tennis practice to go through things that I shouldn't have. So I don't even know why or how you came to the conclusion that I'm from the hood, that I was a part of the struggle, that my mama was a single mama. Like, none of these things are true, but you assume because of what I look like. And because you only hear me talk about my mother. We're in an academic institution where nursing is flagship. My mother has a doctor of nursing. So, of course, I talk about my mama. My father is a pastor, and he's a skilled woodworker. If we were talking about theology or talking about wood, then I would bring up my daddy. But I don't. Right. And then the fact that when I say, oh, yeah, it's about 9 of us that are doctors, and I was the slacker, you think that I'm joking. I'm not. But because of what I look like and what your assumption is, because I am from the country, because I do have about 13 different tattoos, you make assumptions about who I am. Baby, I done wrote 3 books. I got you can't see them. I got awards behind me. I got 6 degrees on the wall. You can Google me. You might see some stuff you don't need to see, but for the most part, you see other stuff. So that's my problem.
Oh my God. Because listen, because Google is free. Google is free. And so, instead of making assumptions, you could do that.
Probably don't look. Now, like I said, you might see something from my college days.
I mean, but that's the thing. We all have something, right? We all have something. Absolutely. But again, there's no need for you to assume you know a person or you know everything there is to know about a person just based on what you see, right? There are better ways to come to conclusions than to just draw them on your own.
Stop drawing anything. Just
stop drawing anything. If you want to draw, no, I'm not even gonna say that. I'm not even gonna say that. But yeah, that's been a burning question for me So I'm glad that you ladies had, you know, some similar experiences that you can speak on. And I hate that for us, right? I really do, because it's not a competition. I really want to see all my sisters win, right? Because that's what we should all want. But I think so. How much of that goes back to the legacy of slavery? Would
I
you
think
say?
a lot of it does. A lot of it does. Because then you get into the colorism, which is so prevalent in our community.
Mm-hmm,
Light skin, dark skin,
mm-hmm,
straight hair, curly hair. Like you see a lot of that. And I
mm-hmm.
think that's that competition too.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's rooted in the legacy of enslavement, right? But also just speaking from the whole strong black woman trope, that we're always taking care of everyone else, right, before ourselves. So I think it's rooted in both of those things, right? And then it gets passed down, right, from generation to generation. Then it gets reinforced, right, by the media, where we work, and maybe even in some of our communities. Because if we move beyond where we grew up and we're in some different communities that maybe are more diverse or don't look anything like what we are accustomed to, it can, that stereotype just kind of, it just builds, right? It continues to grow, it takes on a life of its own. And I'm just wondering, at what point will we help to remove the stereotype? Because I mean, I think we have a responsibility as well. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it's all of our responsibility, especially once you do get a seat at the table.
Mm-hmm.
It that is a part of the responsibility, right? To not reinforce those stereotypes. Two, I think it's important to bring other individuals along. I can honestly say I've had a leader that did, it was literally my very first black leader that I've ever had in academia. One thing she did was put me in front of an audience and say go. And I appreciate her for that immensely. Because I never had anybody to do that. She was, okay, you're going to get in front of these cameras. You're going to present at conferences. And she literally put me on a stage to elevate myself and do better. And I appreciate her for it. So it's my responsibility to usher in, whether it be another generation or just another minority individual, into that same space, even if that means carrying along with my research or bringing them along to present with me, whatever it can. So that way we can push that, because clearly we're the only ones who are going to push diversity at this point. Right. So, and make it a safe space. So it's important for part of my job now, my role as having a seat at the table, that I do usher other individuals into that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say that all my experiences working with women, and especially women of color, have been good. Some of them have been um, good experiences. Others have not. I'm gonna just be honest. And it goes back to that competitiveness. You would rather just shut me down and keep me hidden than to say she can do this. Use her. Put me on the stage to show what I know how to do. And then when I do say something, it's like, oh, we had no idea. We didn't know. And that's because of the insecurities in that person that was put in their leadership role. Now, me, I'm not that kind of leader. I trust you till I can't, and I want you to be on the stage. I want you to do well. I want people to know what you can do because I believe in you and I'm gonna support you. And that's about, helping people to find their own innate greatness. But if you got leaders that really don't want to push you and really don't want you to be on the stage, they'll find every reason not to put you in front of the audiences that matter. And that to me is a real problem among us as black women. And so you wonder why they paint us out as being angry. You wonder why they paint us as being as these negative roles. It's because of sometimes what we do to ourselves. We put so much blame on other people and the other communities and how they treat us. Well, we ain't that nice to each other. I talk about how you can walk down the street in Birmingham, Alabama, and it's women that will walk past you and turn their nose up. I just turn their head and I speak because you're not a part of a certain group.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes it's the people that can do the most that don't act like that. Do you think that all of us, all three of us, all of us that are part of this lady doc, all of us could really just show our whole tail and just be real stuck up and be real, just real ignorant with it? But we're not. We are more focused helping other people to achieve their best. But
Mhm.
like the same women that walk by you and not speak, and then have events and charge $150 for a plate of baby shower food. For what?
Well, you're right. I mean, I think sometimes we do it to ourselves, right?
We do.
Um,
We are as vile as our oppressors, if not worse.
I I don't disagree with you, and it's crazy because in the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks now, as I've scanned, various social media sites, I see other women who are like crying out for friendship, right? And other women to build community with and have connection. And it saddens me because it's like, where are the women, right?
Mm.
And you can only raise your hand so much to be that person for others before it drains you, right? Which is another piece or another layer to that whole strong Black woman persona, because again, we're always looked at as the problem solver, the fixer, all of these things, but that's heavy, right? To carry and to have to show up for every single person in your life. So it's like when I see, women who are saying, well, I just want a friend, right? I'm looking for real, true friends. And you want to raise your hand, but then at the same time, it's like, well, I'm tired myself, right? I'm exhausted myself, and so I don't know if I could show up for you, the way that maybe you need me to show up. And so it's this thing that, it's been born out of survival. It's not a choice, right? But I think at this stage, we do have some critical choices that we can make, right, to change the narrative, to change the outcome. But how many of us, to Jasmine's point, how many of us are willing to do that, right? And I think that's the question that at some point we have to answer, because the reality is this is painful, right? To have to carry this mantle every single day, never really feel like you can put it down, not see yourself as having a true support network of other Black women who want to uplift you and see you win. And that's not to say that some don't exist, because I mean, I think three of us are right here, right, in the same place at the same time. But at the same time, we're in the minority, because again, I'm seeing these stories every single day, and I'm just like, what is going on? what
And the
what is
thing,
happening?
and the thing about it, the whole thing about us having a code switch is not always in those outside places. We have to do it among each other. Because when you talk about a world that doesn't accept us, we still have those microcosms, those small places in our own culture and our own race that don't accept us because of our differences and our uniqueness.
Oh, you think you better than me? How many times did you hear that
I
growing
don't
up?
think I'm better than you, but it's clear that I do some things better than you. So
I
see,
mean, but how many times did you hear that though growing
listen,
up,
um,
right?
not so much. Yep,
Because
growing up and
because
now,
maybe you were more articulate and you were labeled as someone who talked white. What is that? What does that even mean? Right? Or because you wanted to excel in a certain area, so you took more time with your academics or whatever you were good at, right? But you thought you like, no, I don't actually think that.
you think
But
You
clearly you
think
do.
that, and you're
clearly
projecting
you
You
do.
it
do.
onto me, and that's not okay. So how do we how do we move past those things? Because we've seen it. It didn't just, like you said, it didn't just start to show up in the workplace, in some of these outward settings that we're in. It's happening in our own communities, in our schools, in our churches, in our homes, for crying out loud. Because when family comes around and you're just talking, and somebody will make a
You
comment,
talk like
you know
that.
and it's like, what do you mean? That's just how I talk. Like, so it's, where do we draw the line on how we have to show up, versus, as the title says for tonight, who gets the real me? Who can I show up as my true authentic self with, and be 100% accepted? Where
Because
does that
and I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna go back to Dr. Badger. Though y'all know me, y'all know Dr. Jazz, but y'all know Jazz. Some folk know Terry. That's who I was when I was little. Okay, but let's be honest. who we are when we're together in a setting, is that who we can be when we're on these in these other places? No, I don't find that. I don't find that I can be Jazz from the country in all of these settings. So we have to code switch, but it's really hard for me not to still be authentic in who I am. You know, I hear people tell us, you know, when you're in this place, you need to play the game. You need to be a certain way. It's a struggle for me when I have to concentrate so much on my delivery that I oftentimes like have to also concentrate equally as hard as making sure I'm very thorough in what I'm saying because I have to present myself in a certain way. You know, when we're talking about these issues that are so pressing, especially in the healthcare ecosystem, we have to think about the diversity and the biases that we find when we're using artificial intelligence as a tool, not to take over the role of health of humans when it comes to healthcare, but to use as a tool. But I'm gonna just tell you, AI is like coming, like so y'all need to get ready. You know?
Right. Like I was like, is this an example?
Right.
Dr. J? Because and it's funny because we just had this conversation 2 days ago because I was on a meeting with Dr. Jasmine, and I texted her in the background. I was like, "Girl,
I wouldn't even know the
complaint incoming, right?" And we laughed about it and she was like, "What I do?" And I was like, "Girl, that tone." Because again, we can see it, right? We can hear it, but to us, it's nothing but the passion of the work. But for someone else, it's a problem. And so we have to manage, right? How we speak, what we say, how we say. Like, there's so many things that we have to manage just before we can even open our mouths. And it was like, and she was like, "Well, what did I do?" And I was like, "You didn't do anything because what she said was valid, right? It was a legitimate point in the context of the discussion that we were having about health informatics. But at the same time, everybody on the call wasn't going to receive it from a place of passion, right? And so it's like, okay, we got to, again, toe the line. It's a tightrope exercise because it's like, well, what can I say or how should I say it? Or do I need to turn my camera off while I'm speaking so nobody's reading my face or trying to interpret what my face means? And so it's like, it's never ending. But these types of scenarios happen every single day for us. Every single day.
But you know what? What I find in my setting is how y'all are labeling it as passion. Oftentimes, what bothers me the most is I have to code switch, and I've accepted that it's a part of the profession, it's a part of the career. But if I say something a certain way, it's aggressive or attacking. It's labeled as that. If others say the exact same way,
Yeah.
forward,
same words and same way.
I hear your passion. They are labeled as passionate, not us. And so I'm infamous for turning off my camera because
I
you
never turn it on, girl.
that part. But I do that unless I have to. Unless I have to, because especially if I know certain individuals are going to be in a meeting, I know my face is going to turn any other way but nice. And especially if certain things are said in a rude or disrespectful way, because oftentimes I'm sitting in a meeting and I'm like, y'all didn't see that as unprofessional or rude or condescending. Like, help me, because if it were me, I would be sitting in front of HR had I said it that way. But I have to be very mindful of the words I use. I have to be very mindful of the tone I use. And my tone, for the most part, really doesn't change. But I'm very mindful of specifically the words. And then also, like you said, if I'm on camera, the facial expressions, or if I do this, or it's everything is interpreted to be angry, aggressive, or attacking. Like I was just telling Jasmine the other day, I basically told a student, "Hey, I need you to leave. Go handle this, and then come back, and we'll get you squared away." Her response was, "You're attacking me." I concluded the call. Feel free to take it above the chain if you like, but you still got to leave. And so I called my boss and said, "Hey, a student just said I attacked her." But my initial statement to her was, being attacked and feeling attacked are two different things. I'm gonna give you factual information. It just because you can't handle the factual information does not mean you're being attacked. It just means you can't take information for what it is and move accordingly. I can't help you with that. But, so I'm very mindful, especially with my students, of what I say and how I say it. Because at the end of the day, I'm a Black woman that's delivering whichever news, good, bad, or indifferent, to someone, and it's perceived completely different than one of my counterparts who's another race. And that's just the unfortunate reality. But that bothers me the most, is I can be perceived as aggressive or attacking. My counterpart literally can yell, tell you to shut up, stop talking. And we don't perceive that way. We didn't get that message. So that's what bothers me the most, is I have to code switch, but nobody else does.
That's fair. And I think 100% accurate, right? For all of us. I go back to my heavy side, right? Because I mean, that's the reality. And you said something about the cameras being on or off. I never turn my camera on. Jasmine will tell you, I'll text her before a meeting, be like, do I have to have my camera on? Because I already know my face needs deliverance. My facial expressions are always going to give away whatever
every day.
whatever I'm
face
thinking.
needs deliverance.
My face needs deliverance. I'm just telling you, because
It's true.
going to give away, it's a dead giveaway, what is going on in my mind as you are communicating with me. And so if I'm not having a favorable response facially, you're gonna see it.
And you can already hear it in my voice. You don't want to hear it in my voice and see it on my face.
So we're gonna turn the camera off, and maybe you just get the voice. But again, that means I'm not showing up as me, right? Because I'm having to put that barrier in place to mitigate, right, how you will perceive me, right, in a setting. And I don't know that that's okay, right? Because I know my face is just my face. I don't really mean anything by it, because I'm still going to tell you how I feel. But if you're taking the facial expression and the words, and then you're going to, again, weaponize that at some point, that's problematic, right, for everyone involved. Because now I'm offended that you couldn't see past that in order to know this is just my face. I can't help it that you saw, the frown or the wrinkles come in the forehead, or whatever case may be, as you were speaking to me. I can't help that. Like those, like that's just a part of it. But again, we have to put things in place to mitigate how others see us every day. I don't.
Well, we mitigate for how they see us, but I don't feel like we get the same concessions. I don't feel.
Absolutely not.
People just say what they're gonna say, and I'm supposed to be all right with it.
And you're supposed to be
say
okay
something in
with it.
response. I don't feel safe, and I just feel like so aggressive.
All the buzzwords.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, but that's true. That's true.
And back to what Dana said, there's a difference in me attacking you and feeling attacked.
Right.
I'm just telling you what it is.
Yeah.
You will definitely know the difference if I attack you. But it's very rare that I do things like that. I don't have to. For what?
There's no reason for that.
There's no reason for that. We can just talk about it.
Yeah.
But if you feel attacked, and then the other thing is, when people say that when they talk to us, we feel attacked, oftentimes I do, because I'm just like, is this your constructive feedback, or you trying to cut? Like, you trying to cut, especially when we're in the settings when we are a minority, not only in our color, but also in our education and our training experience. Sometimes I can just talk, and if I say something that you don't understand, you feel like I'm attacking you, and then when you say something in response, I'm like, I'm trying to explain, I'm trying to help, but I'm saying as I'm attacking, but I feel attacked. So, it's oftentimes very difficult. I try to find common ground with people. I try to talk to people and let them know, hey, we may disagree on something, but when this meeting is over, we're still cool. We don't get that. They automatically assume a lot of stuff. They automatically make a lot of assumptions. And so that's why, when it comes to code switching, you have to be very gentle in how you address these things and these people.
You do.
They talk to you like you read the dumbest thing walking. Hey, hey,
Well, but to your point though, when you have to do that, how often do you feel like you leave yourself outside the room?
every time.
Every time. Because you
Every
have
time,
to.
because you have to, right? It's like I'm
Not
almost, I'm a unzip and detach right here by the door, and I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna do what needs to be done, right, to survive. Like it's become a survival mechanism, and it's like on some levels almost beyond survival, but also suppression, right? Because I'm having to push me down, right? Like water it down, show up a different way, don't say certain things, don't give voice to certain things because I don't want the assumptions. I
right.
don't want the narrative that follows, right? How is that fair to us professionally or personally?
It's not. And that challenges our authenticity.
It does, but it also it then crosses over into every other category of our lives, right? Because now we're carrying all of what they're putting on us, right? And we take it into everything else, whether that's our romantic relationships, our family relationships, our whatever. We take it over there, and so now it's like, okay, I again, do I have to be two different people in two different places? Because at what point can I merge everything and just be who I am and show up the way I want to?
Now you want to keep your job.
Not if you want gainful employment.
No,
I'm just saying.
don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't say that.
Because I'm telling you, I don't have you have tried to put in Chat GPT, rewrite in a professional tone. Like I have to pay for Chat GPT because I use it so much. Because you don't really want to come out and say, this is stupid mess I ever heard in my life. How in the hell you even get in here in this conversation? You can't
I
say that.
mean, can't say that.
Put
Can't
that
say
in Chat GPT
that.
before you say
Can't say that, but I want to.
because you know the
I want
authentic
to.
me. I'm gonna just be honest and transparent, and
Mhm.
y'all know this about me. Sometimes I'll say it, and I'll be like, I
Mhm.
probably should have said it, but the people that know me, they understand that.
Right.
But people that don't, they automatically assume, and so that's why code switching has become so important because I can't say what I was going to say or say it the way I would normally say it in certain places because and for me, it's not only who I have to be at work, but then I still am clergy in residence. So even there, my the way that I deliver things. I can't be too corporate America in the black church. Okay? Because I was, just a few weeks ago, I was teaching a class about future proofing and how we can't use old solutions for new problems in the church. My presentation was cut short because the person before me is a churchman and he was almost took a text preaching. I came with handouts because we're going through a training session. So even when it comes to that, my persona as an educator and as a facilitator and trainer, oftentimes I have a problem with that trickling over into the black church because y'all really want to hear me hoop and not hear me teach. So
Mm.
there I got Jazz, who I am here at this house, knowing I'll be walking around talking crazy to Tyler. Then I got Dr. Agnew at my job. I have Reverend Dr. Agnew at my church. And it's just like I'm pulling off and putting on every day. And that really gets tiring for me. And I have to just remember, okay, now who am I right now? Who am I supposed to be right now? Because I can't be Reverend Agnew on my full-time job. I have to be Dr. Agnew. I can't be Dr. Agnew at the church because they want to hear that fiery, passionate part of me when I'm really like, no, we got to look at this because it takes more than a call to be a pastor. You got to know how to do conflict resolution. You got to become future ready. You got to make sure that you're in touch with your people. You got to learn how to collect data to see what programs you need to implement in your church. So there's that. It's code switching all around.
So what I
And
hear y'all saying is we can't stop code switching, but we can't be our authentic selves 100% of the time, because the cost of that is too high, might land us as unemployed or labeled in some negative fashion. So then what's the compromise? Where's the happy medium? Like, where's the safe space? And if it doesn't exist, how do we create it?
That's a good question. I'm gonna sit back and see what y'all got to say. I ain't found it in 43 years. I don't know.
That's not
Right.
the answer, Jasmine. That's not the answer.
Because we got to come up with solutions for the problems.
I mean, we got to have a solution.
Right. Right.
Again, if we can't stop doing it, that's what I'm hearing you saying.
Right.
Can't stop, but we also can't afford, like literally, the cost is too high to show up as your authentic self every single time. So there has to be a happy medium. There has to be the safe space that exists that helps us to manage these circumstances. There has to be. And if not, who's going to create it? Like, is that us? Do we start it? Do we kick it off? Like, what? How do we get there? I think is the question that I have.
So I can say for me, yes, I do have to change my voice and the actual terminology of code switch, right? Mm-hmm. But I think for me, what has worked is what pieces of LaDana can I put into my performance at work or in a professional setting that make me feel good about me. And for me, one of the best things is physically showing up as a Black woman, meaning I make sure, I remember when I got my first job, like anytime I would interview for a job, I've always had natural big curly hair. First thing I would do is straighten my hair on the interview. Now, once y'all hire me, y'all can't do nothing about that. But that's how I used to operate. Now I show up as LaDana in her natural state and how I want to show up. And especially so a big thing for me is like I said, I do conferences and seminars throughout the year and present research. I started how I want to look. So I remember a leader some years ago told me, I think we went somewhere and she was like down to the board of nursing. And her statement to me was, make sure you wear black or navy, like a pantsuit, always a blazer. And I was just like, what? Like, no, I need my pizzazz, like my little razzle dazzle in there. So when I go present, I'm not wearing black. You're not going to see me in basic colors. You're just not. You're going to see me in all white. You better see me in these red, blues, greens. I'm going to have this hair how I want. I'm going to have, if I feel like doing a 30-inch bust down, that's what it's going to be. If we gonna do
a 613 30 bust down.
I am not mad.
I'm serious, because what I found is when I feel like I look like I put that shit on. When I feel like that, I perform. Like, you know what I mean? And so, and it's funny because I would go into these white spaces with this ponytail down to my butt, or my natural curly hair, and how many people, oh my God, that is so beautiful. That is gorgeous. Or I would have on some pinstripe pants and a polka dot shirt, and everybody else didn't see it all black and navy and brown. And I would stand out. And that, I remember one leader walked up to me and was like, hey, you represent your organization proud. They really need to look at who you are and be proud of you. And ever since, I show up in that way because that's me. That's authentically me. So that's the biggest piece where I infiltrate Dana into Dr. LaDana Badger in the corporate setting, right? Like I said, the voice, I do have to, of course, change just with me having such a Southern drawl. I am aware that a lot of my students are not from America. So they do struggle to understand the accent. So I'm mindful of that. So therefore, in those regards, I have no problem with code switching and changing my voice and my vernacular and my tone in order for the message to be received. But I make it a point that when you physically see me, you see a Black leader. You see a Black woman in her true authentic self, and not washing it down to what someone else said I was supposed to look like.
Okay, baby, I'm going to put that hot pink and that leopard print on.
Listen, and I'm putting my sneakers on. I don't care. I'm showing up with my J's on. Listen, all the time. I don't care what kind of meeting it is. I'm coming. Like,
I'm a dress, and
yes.
that's who I am. That is how I integrate who I am. And like I posted a piece the other day about the power of a hot pink jacket. And Dana and I both worked with Jan Jones Shank. And baby, that lady, she is not African American, but when I tell you that lady will put it on, she gonna be dressed.
Surely.
And the first time I ever met her, and I heard her say some of the most profound stuff that ever stayed with me as I transitioned, she had on a hot pink jacket. And then from that point on, I would always find me some hot pink. So you see what my manicure, I would always find some hot pink. I put on something, and even if it wasn't hot pink, it was just a color that was bright because that's who I am. That's my personality. Now, mind you, I can put on black and I can rock that too. But I can also put on, like I said, hot pink, leopard. I can put on navy and lime green. I can put on whatever I want to, and I'm gonna make it look good because that's a part of who I am. When I talk about being high style, this is exactly what I mean. I like to dress. When I started this role, I had locks, and of course, it was kind of like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, your hair. Because I mean, somebody in leadership actually said something about my hair. They're no longer with the organization, but they did, in fact, look at my hair like, very. Now I cut it off. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. Yeah, but I still got these designs cut in it. Why? Because I've had them since my college days. And that's what I like to wear. And that's how I integrate who I am. Does my haircut and what I wear depreciate or get rid of anything that I know how to do? Absolutely not. I can still take you from light bulb to launch on whatever product or project you want to put out there in the market. Don't worry about the package. You worry about the product, and the product does not miss. And that's what I think people need to realize. Regina Walton in our comments, she said something that was very important. Let me see if I can. She said being authentic should be encouraged when businesses preach transparency. Absolutely. If you talk about transparency and you talk about how you want to show everybody what you're about and who you are, you shouldn't expect for nobody not to be who they are. If they want to wear pink and purple hair, as long as they have the mental capacity and they can deliver on the goals of that organization, what they look like should not matter. I
But they
don't.
can wear pink and purple hair. They can. They
Well,
can they can come and show their tattoos, their piercings, change their hair color. No one says anything.
but let me do it.
Oh, we can't even wear our natural hair. Forget putting a color to it.
Let me tell you something. I'm gonna keep this laugh from. I should have cut my hair.
Listen, I'm all you see my hair is twisted.
Yeah,
It's fully in its natural state. But I also work with black people. So I
yeah.
mean
But
it's
before you transitioned there, you did work in the hospital. You
I
did work
did.
in healthcare.
And my
So
hair was always bone straight because and I was in the suit and all the things to look a certain way, right? I don't think I really started to embrace more of what I like and how I want to show up until I started working with my people.
and I
Um,
had the opposite experience working with the same people.
right. But again, and that's the thing because you never know what you're gonna get, right?
Agreed.
But I don't think I felt as comfortable. I don't know if I would have walked in the hospital with my J's on if I wouldn't have gotten turned around or sent to HR because hey, you supposed to be in a meeting with the CEO. Where you going with that? Like, and even though I've got on a suit, I got
Right.
on the J's, and so it would have been diminished, right? By somehow by the fact that I have on tennis shoes and not 5-inch heels, which I don't wear anyway. So you're never gonna see you're never gonna see me in that anyway. But it was a very different environment, right? So yes, my hair was always straight. I was very rarely was I gonna have a natural hairstyle. Maybe if I had braids, which is something they, automatically see, okay, she's wearing braids, which they don't necessarily place in the same category as our weaves or, whatever the case may be. But when I moved out of that, it was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. So if I want to twist my hair or just wear it in its natural curly state, that's what I'm gonna do. If I want to wear braids, if I want to whatever, that's what I'm gonna do. I, if I want to put on lime green tennis shoes today because I got on lime green shirt. That's what I'm gonna do. Like, and so I think depending on where we are, you will have like sort of these layers of being able to be more of you, right? But I think in healthcare, it's really very straight laced, right? We all know that because we've all worked there. We've all been in those rooms. So we
And
know what it's like.
my
And
wardrobe has nothing to do with Joint Commission.
it has nothing to do with it. I wholeheartedly agree. But because they are so accustomed to a certain look, a certain feel, a certain style, that's what they want all of us to conform to. And so what I heard LaDana saying is, no, I'm breaking the mold. Like I'm not gonna be boxed in by that. So if I want to make a different fashion choice, I'm going to do that. But I can think 5 years ago, 8 years ago, somebody might have had a conversation about
Mhm.
because that's just not the way. That's not the norm. And for many of us, we know we're the only in the room.
Yeah.
And so there are more eyes, more ears focused on us and what we're doing, even if it has nothing to do with the context for why we're in the room.
Right.
That's that's just a part of it. I don't know. But I ran across this quote when I was trying to get my thoughts together for tonight, and I wanted to put it out there because I was like, that's very interesting. And it's really related to the sort of emotional component to being a strong Black woman. But it says Black women aren't allowed to be fragile. We're expected to be both the mule and the miracle.
Mm.
That's
Mickey Kendall of Hood Feminism said that.
The mule and the miracle.
The mule and the miracle.
I agree with that statement, but it's a
It is the heavy.
That's heavy. That's
statement.
heavy.
We're
Mhm.
supposed to be so much for so many people, but then
Mhm.
who I am is a problem.
Mhm.
That's the hang up. You want me to be the miracle of the miracle, but you want me to be it according to your specifications and to act a certain way, look a certain way, talk a certain way. Because if I don't, then you become offended. But if you want that work done, you know who to ask. You
Mhm.
know who to come to. You know who gonna get it done and gonna make it happen, but you
Mhm.
still can't appreciate me for being who I am. So not only do I have to code switch, change my delivery,
Mhm.
change the way I look, change the way I present to not make you feel offended, but then you depend on me to do so much.
Mhm.
What's the difference in that and what our ancestors did experience on the plantation, and the difference between who's in the house and who's in the field?
Not a lot, right?
That's
And
the
and it,
thing. You want
and
me
it
to do it. You know I can do this work. You know I can get it done, but you only want me to do it if I fit into a certain mold or a certain specification, and I
Mhm.
have to take off who I am and
Mhm.
my authenticity. So I'm juggling meeting your expectations, looking a certain way, delivering a certain way, but also getting things done that other folks can't.
Mhm.
That's a lot for us.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it plays into another quote I saw where Ayanna Albertson says people love the strong Black woman until she refuses to be their savior.
Oh, the 92%
The
right
92%,
now.
which is where we are right now.
Yeah.
Because when we put it down, who's picking it up? And what we've seen historically is the answer is no one, right? But it's like at some point, because we've been taught that our worth is tied to how much we can do, how much we can carry, how much can we fix, how much can we put up with. It goes back to what Dr. LaDana said when she was talking about the struggle and not really wanting to um put herself in that box of equating herself to struggle, because that hasn't been my life. But we're kind of taught that, right? Our culture teaches us that there's something um endearing, right, about going through the struggle or staying in the struggle or always having to struggle. And it's not, right? Because we're more than just the labor that we do. We're more than just all the things that we can fix, all the things that we can tolerate. We're more than that. But
They don't see
People
us as
have to,
negative. But we are negative.
right. And that's the thing. People have to actually see that or choose to see that. And I think that's where there's a huge divide, right? There's a disconnect between people actually seeing and equating Black women, especially, with something of value.
So when I hear both those statements you just said, one, for me, of course, I wholeheartedly agree. That's what we're seeing right now. Like you said, the 92%. We tired. So we're going to sit this one out. We're going to let y'all figure it out. Let's see how it go, right? But I also hear from where I see that the most is from a personal life aspect, from the family setup, from dating. Hear it all the time.
The whole side of my face started tingling when you said that.
I'm gonna cut this camera off, Ladana. Don't you start.
But no, it's like, yeah, we want you. You there to do all the work, fix everything. By the way, your education, do I hear that show up so often? Oh, we don't care about your education.
Your credentials mean nothing.
Your credentials mean nothing.
I hear it all the time. I'm sitting there thinking, I didn't even ask you.
Listen,
That wasn't even
I
a
got my own stuff, and you live in
you don't need your credentials over here.
With white appliances.
With white appliances.
But
Dirty
don't
white
look
appliances.
for me to fix nothing now. Don't. If that's your perspective, keep that over there. Don't
Keep
look
that
for me
over
to
there.
fix nothing. Because remember, it's not valued. And
It's
so
not.
that's a hard pill to swallow, and that comes from within our community. Yeah, I hate hearing that statement. I've heard it multiple times over, about how my education is not valued. And me as a single woman, I'm looking like, okay, I was raised by a very strong man who instilled education within me. So I guess because I wasn't married at 20, I was supposed to just wither and die and not succeed in the meantime. And so it's just kind of like, but we've always been around, even when you look at, like, from a serious standpoint, even when you look at the things that have helped for the Black community. So, for example, I'm thinking about, first thing that comes to mind for me is voters' rights. Of course, the first individuals after white men to get voters' rights were white women, but that was on the backs of Black women that were pushing that. You know, we knew in order to push civil rights, you had to push women's rights first, because they had to get theirs first, and then we kind of felt that it was on our backs and on our coattails. So when you look at voters' rights, women's rights, you always see Black women in the background. You see us standing there marching and doing everything. It's like we're always the ones that's on the front line, trying to correct any social issue, community issue, governmental issue. We're right there. And so now we had a chance to actually make a change. We did our part. And so we're, like I said, now we just like, we're going to let y'all good luck and God's.
You got it. Yeah. Because we can't.
Later.
Yeah, because we can't continue to be all things to all people.
Right.
I think that's what we, again, traditionally have been taught. And if you really want to problem solve, get a Black woman to do it.
Get a Black woman to do it.
Yeah, get a Black woman to do it. And that's really unfortunate because, yes, can we solve it? Sure. Absolutely. We're highly capable, but should we have to is the question. And in many cases, I think the answer is no. But because no one else is stepping up to the plate to do it, we often find ourselves still in a situation where it's us or nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So you made a very good point, Dr. Badger, about dating. So what about having a code switch in those situations and in those dates?
I was wondering if that was coming.
Because I'm pretty sure that I can't be Dr. J, Reverend Dr. Agnew, or Jazz when I'm dating these people. Because I'm telling you, it doesn't work. It doesn't. Because we know your credentials don't mean nothing. Or what you need a man for? You're doing everything on your own. And because all of us either live in our own homes or live in very nice places, well, I mean, what you need me for? So why do I have to code switch to minimize me, cover up the wall when you walk in because it makes you feel, makes you feel a certain way? Because I've had somebody to tell me that that wall right there when you first walk in the house, that's a little intimidating. That was even when I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. So what happens when we have to code switch when it comes to dating? Ideally, people always say, well, if it's the right person, you don't have to do that and they'll accept you for just who you are. So you mean to tell me that it's everybody that we meet that got a problem with us being doctors? And everybody got a problem with us having our own and driving nice cars and wearing nice stuff and being able to do it for ourselves? How do we deal with that? Because that too is a world that does not accept us.
It absolutely is a world that doesn't. And to be honest, my short answer is I just don't accept it. I don't accept that. So I have just kind of relegated myself to, if that is your stance that you have taken, you are not the gentleman for me.
But
Because
if we meet 10, that's 9.5 of that lady.
I agree with that statement too. That's why I'm single. It's just
I mean,
why
it's
we
why we're all single, right?
That's why we here.
For
But
the most part, I think it's why we're all single, because but I think you have to deconstruct so many things, right, within that, because again, that's steeped in a level of insecurity, lack of confidence, all the things that someone then is projecting, right? Because we all have the ability, right, to go out and achieve the same or similar feats. And so when a person takes what you've done and again uses it as a negative, yeah, that's problematic in and of itself, because that's someone that I probably shouldn't be associated with anyway,
But
right?
we do.
I
We
mean,
do associate with them.
and we have, right?
Yeah.
We have. But I think, as again, when you know better, you do better, right? And so you start to pick up on the signs much sooner, right? To see if someone is really supportive of who you are and all that you have achieved, or if someone really feels a way about who you are and what you have achieved. Because it could go either way. But I think it depends largely on the person and what their experiences have been and what their goals and aspirations are, because not everybody sees the value of an education. Not everyone appreciates an education in the same way that we do. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be translated as one if again you take it and use it against me. And I think that's where again, we have to level the playing fields in terms of supporting one another, men and women. We talked a lot about the women that we know or have encountered, but it's the same for the men in our lives. And so, again, we tend to associate with what we know, what we've seen. And so, if there hasn't been what you've seen or what you know, then you don't have the same level of appreciation for it. You're never going to, until someone helps you to see the value in it. And so I think we have to be willing to do that. And the people that are against it or being vocal in a negative way have to be open to receiving it.
so I agree to some point. So for me, it's not even about you having value in my education or even valuing education, to be honest with you. What I see for that, when someone has ever made a statement like that to me, I see it as you basically being an unsupportive individual. So, should I, let's say we get together, move forward in life, you will not support whatever goals, choices, or decisions I choose to make. Versus, I don't have to agree. It's certain things that I would never want to accomplish, but I'm not going to devalue you for it or make it seem like, oh, it ain't nothing. Success comes in its own form. So mine has chose to go along an educational path. Cool. And I do think there is just that kind of divide of, oh, you should go to college versus you shouldn't. I don't think college is for everybody. So even with all these degrees, I don't believe therefore it's for everyone. It's plenty of people making way more than I do without barely got to high
Listen,
school diploma.
a
So
whole
Exactly.
lot more.
so I'm
Whole
not mad at it, right? But if that's the path you have chosen to take, that is absolutely fine. But support me and my successes. my plan is to support you in yours. So I just see an unsupportive individual and you're intimidated by the degrees when there really is nothing for you to be intimidated by. But oftentimes when I do come across those men, I do have to go from my $10 words down, cut that in half, and I have to be more down to earth and talk a certain way. I can't, you know what I mean? And I love a good conversation. I love a man that can hold a good conversation.
Listen,
But
the internal struggle of can
it
I say that
is. Oh
word?
no, I can't
Yeah.
use that word.
Do you understand what I'm
It's like
saying?
the conversation that you're having with
That
yourself,
he
like, can
won't
I say that? Can I
understand.
say that?
It's not
Are you
even
gonna
that.
ask me? Yes, and it's like, and it feels unfair, right? Because you
Mhm.
should again be able to be authentically
Right.
you, and if that means using a $20 word, it should be okay. But
Correct.
in some instances,
Context clues. If you don't know what the word means, you can figure out what it actually
it's
means. Just
exclusive.
context clues. That's it. You don't have to be that smart. Like you just don't. Like or intellectual. Let me say that. You don't have to be that intellectual. But that's just the thing about it. So I just kind of feel like it's an unsupportive individual. That's kind of my stance on it. Yeah, like I
Yeah,
said, you
But
don't
we
have to have
support so much though.
we do, but
We
again,
support
it goes back to who we are and who we have been conditioned to be. Everyone has not
because
been
you can't,
conditioned to be that though.
but you can't
Everybody,
support me being a doctor, but I can support you being a 46-year-old aspiring rapper. What?
I'm not even gonna play that game. You know,
listen, some stuff like okay, no, like
we
no,
don't support that.
no. But what I'm saying is, we again, the woman, but especially Black women, have been conditioned that again, we're the fixer, we're the problem solver, we're the caregiver, the caretaker, the all the things, and unfortunately, that really again, it rolls over into every area of our lives,
It does.
every
Yeah.
single one. And so there's this unspoken expectation in a lot of senses that you have to be this, you have to support me, you have to go along, but again, we may not get that same consideration in return. And so back to Dr. Badger's point when she said, I'm just not putting up with it. I think that's where we have the control, right? We have to start setting boundaries that really speak to what it is that we will or will not accept. And we can't be apologetic about it, right? This is the boundary, and there's no apology for it. It is what it is. That's it, and that's all. And I think it really starts with us to change some of this for the better.
And be authentic with it. And
Mm-hmm.
stand by what you say. And don't say, well, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Because there's some freedom in being authentic.
Right. We've talked about being my authenticity. When I was trying to be a good spouse and a good girlfriend, it got me in trouble. When I was out here to do what I wanted to do, I didn't have these problems.
Mm,
I could be
mm.
very authentic.
Yeah, gotta be
Lock,
honest.
lock the
Yeah.
door. Turn the bottom lock. Lock the
Look,
door on your
look,
way out. I can do that. But when I'm
look.
trying to, okay, dear.
Don't
It
let
comes,
her loose. Don't let her loose. Don't let her loose.
my life
No.
was different back then.
Okay.
Hurry up.
Look.
You gotta go work in the morning.
Mm.
Bless
Number
it.
be blocked before you get to the car. I didn't live that life. And now having to code switch and be a different type of person,
Yes.
I end up having to diminish who I am to make you feel good and feel better.
Mm-hmm.
So I come to y'all ceremonies. Make sure we got some
Well,
good food in the media.
as it stands right now, there are no ceremonies taking place.
No.
Don't worry about it. You don't have to come anywhere. There are no
Have to go.
ceremonies taking place. Okay.
I didn't have, but seriously, I didn't have to code switch back then. I
Mm-hmm.
am who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't care what you think about me. But as
Mm-hmm.
we got older, and of course, it became a part of our life, and them say, and society putting in our ear and our mind, this is what you need to do. You spend so much time pursuing your education. Now it's time for you to try to be everything to somebody else. So we do have to change who we are. If he like long hair, you want me to put a bust down there, and not because I want it, but because he like it. You want me? He like me a little slimmer, then I need to get on this treadmill a little.
As you tell, you seen what I look like when you met
You know what
me.
I'm saying? But if that's what he listen, you want me to spend $200 at Victoria's Secrets, and you still wearing them same drawers from your senior year of high school with 3-4 holes in the back of them.
Oh.
You
Girl,
want me
what time do the podcast in?
Oh, look, we been around. Okay, all right. I ain't gonna
Nope.
hold
Look.
you.
She
Nope.
wasn't ready. I wasn't.
What's
That's a
that?
whole different show. Ain't it?
Listen, that's a whole other episode. Don't do it. Don't do it. No. Mm-mm.
I ain't finna go switch like that. I
Whew,
shouldn't have.
Jesus. Mm-mm.
I was ready. I had put my lip gloss on. I was ready, but I ain't gonna do it. I ain't gonna do it today. We already 14 minutes old. Okay.
Yep, we're not.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Lord.
That'll be on the next episode of the
On the
Lady
next
Dots, we'll
episode
be
of the
talking
Lady
about
Dot.
why the heck I got to be everything to somebody who ain't doing nothing. That's who
Ooh, that's spicy. That's spicy.
I'm saying.
Jason.
You want me to cook like your grandma and be fine like a video vixen? You want me to make 100,000, but you don't feel comfortable with a woman to make more money than you? You want me to make you feel like you're a wonder when you ain't?
Look, we gonna go 50-50.
We can't go 50-50. We can't.
Yes, we can.
No,
There are more ways to go 50-50 than financial. Yes, you
Y'all
can.
stressing me out.
I'm just messing with Jazz. I'm just messing with Jazz. Because she knows.
And she triggered me talking about that 50-50. I'm gonna tell you something.
I'm just meddling. I like it.
You
Listen,
finna
but
spend my
I like to
175
stir the pot.
like
Yeah.
like you earned it.
Look, and I can always get Jasmine going. I'm just meddling. But on the next episode, tune in.
But on the next
I'm
episode,
going to unpack that.
this gonna be Boaz's dead version too. Okay? You got the right one.
I think that's gonna be all Jazz, not
None of us gonna be there.
Dr. Agnew, not Reverend Doctor. That's gonna be all Jazz.
All right, well, I keep going.
Look, the code switch for the next
That's
slide.
code switching all day right there.
Listen, stay tuned for the code switch. A real life example. That's episode 2.
Episode 2, that's real life example. And that triggers me. That makes me very upset.
Oh no, friend.
So that's another instance where I can't be Jazz. I got to be whatever. Okay.
All right.
It's been a wonderful evening. Thank you all for came and joined with us on tonight. We will do this again. We'll figure out how often we're gonna do it. I don't think we got the capacity to do this every week, but maybe twice a month, maybe once a month. We'll have to get together. Yeah.
Okay, so say it in a professional tone. I think I know how I would say it, and then say it in a code. A actual natural tone.
Okay, so what you want me to say?
Do the code switch one first.
Of what? What I'm saying?
Like basically, so we don't have the bandwidth.
So, we thank you all so much for joining us tonight. You know, all of us, African American women of color that have attained these terminal degrees still face a lot of the struggles that other women do. This is an opportunity for us to use this as our platform to talk about all of the pertinent issues that we face in our community. This is a time for us to come together, for us to share our insights, and to be a resource and to be support to one another. However, due to our other responsibilities, we do not know if we'll be able to do this every week, but we do promise that we will be here to be a resource for all of you at least once a month as we talk about these issues and help to build one another up, to be the best, to see the best, and to do the best. In other words, we'll be back probably in about a month or so, and we're going to do this again.
We're going to catch y'all on the next one.
We're going to catch y'all on the next one. And the next time, I'm going to definitely tiptoe it right on in there and talk about why I can't just be Jazz. Why I got to be somebody else.
I'm with it. I support it.
Thank you so much for supporting. We appreciate it so much. It's so amazing to be here on this platform with such an august body, such an amazing body of intellectual and brilliant Black women.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Y'all cut
Y'all
the
have a
street.
wonderful night.
Good night.